people are going to start talking. They're going to be saying, hey, Mike, whether it's the ontological Mike, the proverbial Mike Rich, jivanmukti.org. I'm just going to say, hey, Mike, man, it's like you're really getting into this WeltSchloss word that you made up. How many people have made up a German word in their lifetime? I did yesterday, WeltSchloss. So this is the third recording on it. As far as podcast, I did make a video that's posted on grandtourideas.com, grandtourideas.com of my ideas, and I am MikeRatner.com. Sort of a contemporary, I guess, social philosopher. I guess maybe the appropriate niche to pinpoint what I'm what I'm about, at least attempting. So anyway, we were examining an ontological word, and WeltSchloss, the word I made up yesterday, uh, translates into world building. So we're talking about uh, sort of the world in which Morb lives, like just to fit it in its dimension. And it's a made-up world, the world we live in, right? So there's different dimensions of this world. But the Germans, they like to pinpoint things and define words that we really don't have in the English language per se. And their actual word is called Erschlossenheit. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Erschlossenheit. It's a long word. Now, I'm not going to spell it for you this time. You can go back to an earlier recording, or you can just follow through to find where I've written about it. I'm going to create a paper. I'm working on a paper that talks about world disclosure, but particularly my word, which is world in English, building, which translates from the German word that I made up, into sort of what's, I guess, revealed to us. Now, it's hard to comprehend my own analogies here because we're going to go down the rabbit hole, and that's why I'm continuing to make this into another recording, because there's a lot of great information to mine here. And when we talk about ontological sense of being, and my goal in talking about ultra being, sort of maximizing our state or capacity uh, in the way that we're existing, which is what ontological study is about. It's a philosophy deep into the way and manners of existence. And I'm looking at the quality of our being, human being, and then what's our potential in the way of our being, and talking about conscious awareness or I-awareness, because it's talking about this I. And if you go to the grandtourideas.com website, you talk about the creation of the metaphysical world, uh, and the physics of the physical world. They're both the same. It's MEST, M-E-S-T, matter, energy, space, and time. So this concept of WeltSchloss is sort of like the world being revealed or building. It's sort of the meeting of minds, you could say, of comprehension of things, where we're in identity to something perhaps, or relating to something. And it could be an idea, a person, place, or thing. Or in my world right now, a concept, WeltSchloss, world building. What are we building? So the building, again, talking about the words that the Germans use, the interpretations that they build into it don't necessarily translate easily to English. And that's why I had to create this word, WeltSchloss, because I kind of like the slosh element because it's such a long word. Let's see if I'm going to go walk to it so I pronounce it right. I have to see it on paper. Erschlossenheit. Erschlossenheit. Now, someone who really is linguistically minded would take apart every component, but the slosh is a building, but also equating to dwelling. And so we can look at this in their regard from the Middle Ages use of the word to describe a castle. And in more contemporary times, the dwelling is really a great dwelling, and I'm talking more of a chateau. And from an ontological perspective, again, the yin and yang view and duality here, the dwelling is how we're dwelling. How do we dwell inside? And also, how do we relate into the messed up realm in which we dwell? The messed up realm, again, being matter, energy, space, and time, MEST. So, and it becomes messed up because when we counter what's universal and perpetual, it's sort of like, okay, it's not quite right. But we learn from these experiences. And so what is being revealed here in my term of WeltSchloss, which is, I know, an uncomfortable world because we're talking about sloshing around. At least that's why I adopted it, because this is the dwelling. So the world dwelling, something in this regard of philosophy becomes revealed. So it's referring to how things, in the German word, Erschlossenheit, literally become intelligible to us and meaningful, and of course relevant in our ability to have this sense of being in the world. Okay, so we're being a part of something. We're also in the world, and we are also perhaps adapting something that's been predetermined to us, right? Because we've labeled things and given names, and so this WeltSchloss is dealing with what's already existing, and sort of once something is identified, there seems to be some component to it of evaluation. So it might be in the MEST world, a material use of it. There's something energetically we can perhaps divine or describe about it or sense. The same thing with space, right? There's an element of the relationship of our space and then the quality of our time. So if we look at this concept of WeltSchloss and how we are interpreted, and again, I want to finish with this and then move on to my other ideas, which I think are huge, but in order to get into the funnel or the portal, this is sort of the gateway, because we're talking about sort of sensory acuity in awareness, so the awareness of my thoughts, words, and actions. So as something is speaking perhaps to me, or I'm sensing something, and it could just simply me being in judgment of it, or me totally being ignorant and sort of avoiding it or not even seeing it, there's something still there perhaps that's tapping you on your shoulder, kind of reminding you about that particular person or that incident in the past, and telling you, hey, you still got to deal with it, or there's something there on a whole nother dimension that by it being revealed, you're now okay with it, or you're able to equate something that now sort of brings it more to fruition. So I just put these parameters out there, and the key is not to be stuck in any one. There could be something then at the light that does reveal, and we could concentrate on that. But again, what is dwelling in sense of what you're perceiving to be out there is often just our projections of things that are coming from where we're dwelling on the inside. Now, this is just something to contemplate. Now, for some people, it's like, well, man, you're just talking about stuff. It's like, yeah, every day. It's like, yeah, things are perceived in the world. Yeah. So, yeah. So there might be sort of an attunement to this, so a finer regard, maybe something that perhaps, they say the big picture is revealed in the details. So something then that comes out. Now, the trick is in this awareness idea of ultra being, we could be attuned to it, and then we could be charged by it. So it's something that, manifests for you. Talking about the MEST analogy again, and then becomes very energetically supportive where you are emotionally. And this enlightens perhaps a condition, a situation. There could be a shift paradigm-wise that recreates the space. The space now becomes sacred between us, and the time divine, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have such a great time being around you. And the time is well divine, which means that we're not just spending time, we're actually investing time. And that's why I appreciate you listening to these ideas. So when we talk about this WeltSchloss, again, we don't have the equivalent in the English language other than what philosophers call the world disclosure. And what the heck does that mean? So literally from the German word Erschlossenheit. Everyone say it together. Erschlossenheit. And height, so I'm very ein bisschen Deutsch, so it's really minuscule, any comprehension I have of German. But to me, in the way I look at things, I want to have us the concept of having centering a place of this existence within MEST, that's the consideration for what's manifest, what's energetically and emotionally happening, a spatial context in a relationship, and a temporal sense that this is the here and now, and let's appreciate. These elements in the buildup of what's described here in the disclosure reflects the quality of our dwelling, but also then reveals the potential, or at least a reinterpretation as things are revealed, to be able to use this comprehension either to perhaps better balance, get into sync with things, check in with your posture, your breathing, your attitude, sort of like reattune, or something reveals itself. So it's a re-revelation, you could say, in this regard. We'll talk about it in a second. And then the other sense of it is that, well, in the communication we have with it, and there should be, at least in my estimation, a high quality of discernment. Because if someone is in the sense of, the world build, all of this interpretation of energy, space, and time, something is, at the same time being revealed, is caused or at least associated with our interpretation, and therefore we're building it. Well, now you're getting deep, man. We're building it. Yeah, I get it. Do you get it? So in one sense, you could just say, okay, we're acknowledging something that's already exists, so the building or the castle. That's the German word for Schloss in the Middle Ages. I was going to say ancient times. It might have been going back that long. I don't know. I didn't talk to some barbarians. Man, we're going to get that slosh. So it's like, okay, it's just sort of something that we can reinterpret ongoing. But as long as we have some semblance, I'm talking about balance here and whole brain perspective, things can be attuned to a relative degree that it is what it is. We appreciate it, but now perhaps we see it in a new light. So there's a new delight, perhaps. Or we drop it because it's no longer needed to react in that way. Either the situation resolved itself or you just mentally became more competent to sort of go, oh, it's of the past, problems of the past. Now, again, there might be something responsible here to deal with, if there is something, to make good, to make up. Something could be owed. And we don't deny it. Go, oh, well, we've grown up now and we'll just forget it, what you owe. It's like, well, if you owe it, you owe it. Pay it back and do it in kind, right? So in this level, and how you interpret that kind, is sort of the relevation that's happening. So it's a really powerful word, this German, Erschlossenheit. And so by its own simple definition, again, by its root meaning, it just simply means development and comprehension. So as things develop, whether we could say on the macro scale, contextually in society and the world, we're able to see and perhaps better comprehend it for what it is, but also what's revealed behind it. It could be the intention or the incentive of what, is the potential to be realized. And the same exists in our conduit, our connection, right? Our community. And this comprehension is cosmic at the same time that we're talking about conscious. So I'm conscious. And again, the trick is, to stay on the fine edge of things so we don't flip to one side or the other side. And of course, if you do, you get something revealed, the lesson, and then you get back on the horse or back on the fence or the razor's edge, as it's called, where you're walking the fine line between yin and yang, right and wrong, and having an opinion about it. You'll be able to see it for what it is. And there could be that inkling of judgment. That is also part of the WeltSchloss. That's what's being disclosed. And so it's our world, so it's the world that we make up. It's also the world that's constructed, that's co-inhabited, so we are participating in it. And as something else deeply gets revealed, perhaps there is the spiritual dimension. And again, reflects into how we're dwelling in it, and then also our impacts that allow the revelation to reveal itself even more because we, number one, are more present, and this present is more pristine in our attention. So the less of the agenda, less of the education, that we impose on things, labeling it has to be this way or that way, and there could be a quality standard that should be appreciated, and if there is sort of an agenda, it's set to where everyone understands it, they agree, there's agreements here, and then we have the green light to participate as long as everyone's heard and we're all good. This creates that harmonic signature and that element that at least keeps things comprehensible to the degree that if we're in the WeltSchloss and we're sloshing around, to the degree that we hold things, we are in integrity. There's really deep, profound consideration for what this experience or what's appreciated in the here and now comes about. So we maximize our MEST experience. It's less messed up, right? So it becomes more intentional in the way that we desire it to be by agreement, and it's well informed, right? We got everyone's opinion. There's no hidden intention. So there's less of this morbidity, which is the morb concept, and certainly to know one, I had to be one. So we grow from these experiences, hopefully, and at least we do in time. But I think if we can accelerate the pace of maturity in the sense that we don't lose our childlikeness to imagine and conjure things up like, WeltSchloss, what then revealed in our comprehension is a deep understanding of what is and the potential to what we develop. And perhaps what was can now either be, dealt with in a new way that's very adroit. That's a good word. So capable, manageable, really, attuned to a really fine level of engagement. And so in that way, and there's different levels of this disclosure, the world disclosure of what's revealed to us, right? So wherever people are at, there's sort of just an appreciation and a real warmth and welcoming to this arena or area where